Listen.
You're not delicate at anything, Alex.
Double stuffing your hot dogs with thick boy wieners. I don't know what the fuck.
Nope.
Double stuffing your hot dogs?
Yeah, you gotta
Nope.
put 2 hot dogs in it.
No! You never do 2 hot dogs.
Wait,
Listen.
I'm sorry. What kind of heathenry is this?
I'm sorry. I've got to stop the stream. I draw the line at double stuffing your hot dogs. That just sounds completely unacceptable. But on an unrelated note, in this video, I'm going to show you how to do all of this. All right, for this video, you'll need a few things. OBS Studio, of course, but then you'll need the freeze filter plugin from Exeldro. That's how we do the main, freeze frame effect. We're also going to use the OBS filters hotkeys script so that we can control everything. And then I'm also going to be using the OBS shader filter plugin to take this to the next level. And we're going to be using a Stream Deck multi-action to control it all. If you don't have that, you'll need AutoHotKey. I'll show you how to set that up in the video as well. Everything will be time-coded in the description. For the purposes of showing this off, since we're not game streaming as I am showing this, I have a stream VOD set up here as just a looping media file. So you can pretend that this is a full composite of my webcam, my overlays, gameplay, and so on. Fake it till you make it. And then for the sake of convenience and neatness of applying these effects and the different layers, I actually have it nested. So if you're unaware, you can add a scene as a source to another scene. So if I subtract this, we can pretend that this scene has all my different sources in it as different sources. But since I want to apply the pause effect to the entire scene and not just one of these sources, I've made a new scene that will be what goes out to my stream. And then I add the scene source here and choose that composite stream. And we'll be doing our work in this one. You don't necessarily need to do it because you can add filters to individual scenes here in the filter section. But then, for example, if I start adding the overlays, the filters will affect those too, and that gets really messy. So this is the easiest way to go. I have videos up on the channel about scene nesting if you want to learn more. All right, so there's a couple different elements that we're using for this project. One of which is the freeze frame filter. Then we have a distortion filter we're going to use to make it really, sell the look as a VHS analog tape kind of situation. And then I have a couple overlays that I've released on Discord, discord.gg/EposVox in the free downloads channel. You can download those for yourself. And so we're going to add those first so I can show you that structure, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of the filters. So first and foremost, we have 2 different media files here. One is a WebM with alpha transparency that's only going to show for a second, and the other is an overlay that we're going to chroma key to make look decent. Now, the transition you can actually set up and use as a stinger transition if you want to go from your main stream scene to this distorted one, even though we're kind of going to be enabling most of this stuff anyway by hotkey. If you want to do it that way, that's fine, but I'm just going to trigger it to show once over top the scene, and we're good. So drag that onto your OBS, and it's actually 4K. I may separate that out to 1080p, but just right-click, fit to screen, and then drag the overlay on as well, and make sure the overlay is positioned below the transition. So ignore the transition for now. It literally just shows for a second. That's all you got to worry about. In the overlay filter, we do need to set up chroma key. I was unable to do this with alpha, and frankly, chroma key will perform better for you anyway. So go to properties for the media source, enable loop and hardware decoding, and click OK. Then go to filters, add effect filter, chroma key, not color key, chroma key. The green by default does a fantastic job. With white and black on green scenes like this, I like cranking up the contrast so we get that white brightness back, and you can tweak brightness just a little. And then play with similarity here. You don't want it to eat into the text too much, but you want some of the text to be preserved. And obviously we don't need crisp, clear text because it's supposed to be all distorted and noisy and whatever. We're good to go with the overlay. We're going to be setting up all of this to actually show and hide as we go later on. Now we can start freeze framing because that's the big effect that we're focusing on here is the freeze filter. So click on the source entry for your mainstream scene, go to filters, add effect filter, freeze frame. Click OK. And that's just going to pause it in place. That's the main effect that we're kind of going for here, which is pretty cool. And then you do have some other options here. So you can have it automatically just turn itself off after a point in time, which is cool if you want to set all this up to be automated, but we're just going to do it with Stream Deck buttons or AutoHotKey hotkeys. Then you can have it set to refresh at a certain interval. This is measured in milliseconds, so every 1,000 is a second. But for example, I can set it to 2,000 milliseconds here, or 2 seconds, and every 2 seconds, it's going to update a new frame, which is kind of acting like the tape is slipping or something like that. It kind of just looks like you're dropping your frames and might confuse people, but, it's up to you. I'm going to leave it on off because that's how I like it. You also have the control to mask it here, so you can do like split screen comparisons between like a specific freeze frame point and the ongoing thing. Not really relevant for this specific use case, but you do have that control available if you're interested. You could also set it up with the top and bottom to where you just have a little bit playing on the top and the bottom here, as if it's the vertical slip a tape might have. but it also just kind of looks like you were lazy and didn't properly mask this, so I'm not a fan. Then you got more controls over whether the filter is hidden and shown and deactivate actions, but we're going to do all this with hotkeys, so don't worry about it. Just click close. All right, so now we have the basic effect. This is the core concept that we're showing off with this video, done super, super quick. But I wanna sell it as more of an analog thing, because we got the overlays, and that's cool, but the frame itself is not being affected by the overlays, and it doesn't really look like it's anything. So for this, we're going to be using the OBS shader filter plugin. So go back to filters for the stream scene, and you want to make sure it's under the freeze frame, because if you put it above the freeze frame, then it's going to freeze that effect. Add a new filter, user-defined shader. We'll call this VHS, and then load effect from file. And there's actually a VHS one baked into the examples here. I'm actually going to use the scanline shader first. I don't know why they defaulted to a 45-degree angle. You want to add a 90-degree angle to go horizontal, and then we're going to adjust the period. Let's set up the slider inputs. Ooh, lengthwise actually kind of gets it where we want, but set up the period to go a little bit thinner on us here, and the floor to make it a little less obvious. And then we can animate it as well if you want that kind of bouncy effect, but we're going to do that with a separate shader. So if you want an easy way, you can just do it with the scan line. And like, that's kind of cool. Kind of looks almost like interlaced. We're going to use a separate shader for that part. So leave that alone. I'm just going to leave my window over here instead of moving it on you constantly. Add new user-defined shader. Actually, we're going to rename that one because that one is actually the scan lines. Add new user-defined shader. We're going to call this one VHS and choose the VHS shader built into the examples here. Now, this one I'm not a huge fan of. The sliders are super finicky, and this just doesn't look super accurate, but it is pretty cool. And if you mess with the settings a bit, for example, turn down noise quality to 100, change noise intensity to 0.5, and mess with the color offset intensity a tiny bit. It's okay, but this isn't super realistic. It's more of like a glitchy kind of thing than an actual VHS effect. So I'm going to use a different shader that Exceldro actually ported from Shader Toys for me that I don't know if he's distributed anywhere yet. And if not, I will try to get permission from him to upload it somewhere. But this is a VCR shader, and this one is a lot more accurate. However, we kind of need to tweak it a little bit because it actually crops off the corners to make it like a round tube kind of thing, which if you want to leave, that's fine. I'm not a fan of it. So under distort, I set it back to 1. If you set it to 0, it gets all crazy. If you set it to 2, it's basically how much it like zooms it out. So I'm just going to set it to 1. We do get a little bit of a zoom, but that's fine. VHS tapes are always cropped and distorted and weird. And then you can kind of mess with the other settings. I never really found a whole lot of great results with them. Clearly vertical shift really cranks that up. You don't want it to bounce around too much because that's really going to mess with people's like heads. You don't want to make people nauseous. You just kind of want to sell the effect. So I'm going to pull this back up. I hate that this doesn't remember anywhere that you are. So the default is 0.4. So we're going to set distortion back to 1. We're going to set this to 0.2. And then we're going to turn down vignetting a tiny bit. Yeah, if you go too far, it gets like super white, but minus 0.5. But we want that to be a minus. There we go. And then the stripe is there's a kind of vertically scrolling little distortion thing. You can crank that up. I'm going to leave it about there. And then vertical factor and vertical height. If you turn down vertical height a little bit, it bounces a whole lot less. So if we set it to like 11, it's going to bounce a little less high. You don't get controls over everything. Exceldro can add more controls to this effect if we want later. But I think, you know, this is a lot more accurate than the other one. The only thing we're really missing is maybe a little bit of chromatic aberration here, which you may or may not want. But we can add that in as well. I think I have a separate filter from Exceldro for that. Let me pull it up real quick. All right, I will have this one linked down below as well. This is the chromatic aberration shader that I had Exceldro port for me. You can just download it from GitHub. And then come in here, we're going to add a new shader. Actually, we're going to rename that one and call it VCR just so we know which one's which. And then we're going to add a new user-defined shader. We'll call this chromatic aberration. And we're just going to put in text. So paste all that text in there. Slider inputs. Now we want the distortion to be less. There we go. That's a little bit better. And now we can adjust the power of the distortion. Oh my God, we made an eyeball. It's the analog eye of Sauron. Come back. 0.5. Oh my lord. That looks incredible, but that's not what we're after. 0.02. There we go. Just subtle. We got the little RGB split on the edges there. That's all we want. That's really all we want. And close. And obviously, more shaders, more GPU load, and all this noise is not going to compress super well, but the added, degradation of the quality and the lower frame rate you might get is kind of on brand for the effect. But there we go. That is the main distortion. This is the look that we're going after. I'm okay with this. This is pretty cool. As someone who messes around, with real VCRs, and VHS tapes and have my whole glitch art set up, like, this is about as accurate as you're going to get for digital stuff, especially in real time in OBS here. But now we want to automate it so that we can have the stream going normally whenever and then just flip this on all at once. So for this, we will need that OBS filters hotkey script. So go to Tools, Script, make sure you have downloaded it, and add the script file for the OBS filter hotkeys. For this one, we're just using video, but there's one for audio and video if you want to add them both. And then we're going to start working our Stream Deck. So again, I'll have a separate AutoHotKey section added at the end here, but for the Stream Deck, I'm just going to add a new multi-action. We're going to call this Pause. Go into it. Now we're going to start messing around with things. So we're going to turn everything off that we have on right now. So we're going to go to our filters and turn all this off. By the way, to use the OBS filter hotkeys, you actually need to add that as a filter. So add new filter, filter hotkeys. Okay, you don't need to do anything with it. It just sits there. So now we have our normal stream. By the way, it does not, when you freeze frame, it does not pause your audio. So you may want to add a mute audio toggle to this multi-action. You may not. Depends on how you have things set up. All right. So order of operations matters here. So first and foremost, we want to show the little VHS transition. So add a source toggle. We're going to activate it. VHS transition from our pause scene. We're good to go. In your properties for this, you can actually tell it to close when inactive. I think you used to be able to hide it when inactive, but that's fine. It'll obviously turn itself back off. And actually, you could set up a toggle for this, but this is fine. That's fine. We're going to call this transition. And obviously, if you were transitioning scenes, you could do it that way. Set up the scene transition. All right, here we're going to enable the filter. So we're going to go over here to hotkey because we need to add a hotkey for it. Now, in the settings hotkeys, the freeze frame actually adds its own hotkey. Exceldro's a bro and actually adds the hotkeys for that. So if we scroll down to pause scene, nope, it's going to be on the sources. Yeah. So here's our stream source, enable and disable freeze. So we're going to say Control Alt multiplication, Control Alt star. That is going to be our enable and disable freeze hotkey. Apply. All right. Now we can set that as our hotkey for that. So that will turn on. Our title will be freeze, fool. All right. So that'll enable the freeze. And then we want to add all of the shaders that we were working on. So if we pull up, I don't know why I always double click for filters. We want the scan lines, the VCR, and the chromatic aberration. Obviously, you can choose the ones that you want. So that means we need we need 3, effectively 6 sets of hotkeys, which gets kind of wild. I do wish there was a plugin for OBS or for Stream Deck that would pick up scripts like that to enable Stream Deck integration, but that gets a little wonky. I understand why there's not, but we're going to add 3 hotkeys here. And actually, we want this multi-action to be a multi-action toggle. We have not done that here. I'm going to go ahead and set that up. I'm just realizing that would be the smarter way to go, actually. So we're going to come down here to Stream Deck, and we're going to do a multi-action switch instead of normal multi-action. So we're going to call it pause, and for action 1 is going to be to pause the stream. So we are going to copy each of these. I really wish you could copy more than one at a time, or copy, like, actually, can I just drag all of these in here? Nope. Yeah. So I wish you could copy more than one things at a time, but we only had 2 that we actually set up yet. So action 1 will be pausing it. Action 2 will be unpausing it. We'll set that up really quick in a minute. All right, so then we want the 3 hotkeys to do our other filters. Obviously, do as many as you're doing. I'm going to call this scan lines. This one's going to be VCR. This one's going to be chromatic aberration. And then we got to go back into our settings, hotkeys, and under the general hotkeys section, there will now be the toggles for all of those filters. So if you're doing this on multiple sources, you'll want to name them appropriately. But 0 is for disable, 1 is for enable, 3 is for toggle, but sometimes the toggle only works when you're holding it down for me. I don't know why. So we're going to do enable. So we have 3. I'm actually going to use the ability in Stream Deck here to use extra F keys that we don't have access to. So I'm going to say F24 is scan lines. F23 is VCR. F22 is chromatic aberration. And I am actually going to copy these out temporarily to my main Stream Deck. That way I can set them in OBS, because I don't have those keys on this keyboard. I have a Model M somewhere that has those keys, but I'm not pulling it out for this purpose. So now I can come over here to the hotkeys. I got to remember which one was which. So VCR is F23. So let's go over here to VCR. We want to enable it right here. I'm going to hit F23. And then same thing for chromatic aberration. We want the number 1. The order on these gets really wonky, so just keep in mind the numbers. That's chromatic aberration. And then there we go. F22, 23, 24. We're good to go there. Click apply. All right. Now we need to delete those. And we'll need to map them for unpausing in just a moment. I believe that's everything. That will freeze and turn on all the effects. So we should be good there. So now we'll do the same thing here. We'll set... Oh, we forgot our VHS overlay. Whoops. So set an OBS source here after the freeze. And that will be under the pause scene. And we want to toggle on VHS overlay. All right, now we're good. So 6 total things, 2 sources, and then a bunch of effects. And then we're going to undo it on button 2 so that we can press the exact same button to turn it back off. So OBS source, we're going to go kind of in reverse order here. So we are going to... We're actually going to... Ooh. Okay. We're going to turn off the VHS transition source. We're going to start turning off the effects. And then we're going to turn on and off the VHS transition source again. And there's enough delay in the Stream Deck that I think that will work. So now we need scan lines, pause. No, that'll be the overlay. This is VCR. We want an OBS source here for the overlay to turn off, probably at this point. Unpause. We'll deactivate this. That'll be for the VHS overlay. We got scan lines, VCR, chromatic aberration. What was the other one? Freeze, unfreeze. Yeah. We'll probably unfreeze right after we unpause. So unfreeze. And that one will have its own, it was Control-Alt-Star for that one. Okay. So then CA will be F21. VCR will be F20. And scan lines will be F19. And again, we will copy these back out to main so we can input them to OBS. Come in here to OBS. We want 0 for hiding. So we have VCR. We have chromatic aberration. And we have scan lines. Apply and OK. Come in here to the Stream Deck. We can delete these. All right. So we have deactivated that. We're going to come back here and reactivate the transition right as the unpause happens. What is happening? There we go. We're going to go to VHS transition activate, and then we will just turn it back off at the end here. We don't have to worry too much. The only reason we are turning it off here is just so that it can be easily reactivated later, because it only plays for a second, so it's not a big deal. So all things considered here, this should work. We are now sitting here. Our scene is playing, and if we press our pause button on our Stream Deck, we have paused it. And if I press it again, that is pretty slow. I'm not going to lie. So you may want to play with the order of operations there. It's really compelling. Okay, so we just got to change the order that it unfreezes. I think that's the problem. Yeah, you can see the effects come off there. So we want to play with that order a little bit. That's all we got to do here. Because you can see the distortion come off at the end, which you don't want. Something like that, maybe. We'll try it again. I want the unpause to happen at the very end, I think. That's a lot better. There we go. Way smoother. So order of operations is deactivate the transition so we can activate it again later. Disable scan lines. Reactivate the transition effect. Disable the freeze. Disable chromatic aberration. Disable the VCR distortion. Re-enable or just disable the VHS transition again, and then disable the overlay. And I think that sells it really, really well here. If you like learning how to do these crazy OBS configurations and builds, then you're really going to love my new Maker content where I show you how to build more things in the physical realm. A lot of it is launching exclusively on Nebula. Nebula is my own video streaming site I built with my creator friends that house content just like that, which honestly are not going to perform very well on YouTube thanks to the good old retention algorithms. I'll be uploading a lot of Nebula exclusive content this year. You don't want to miss out. If you really want to take this effect to the next level, I think it's pretty cool to like pause your stream and then have yourself with a green screen come out in front of it. And so I'm going to quickly walk you through what I did here, but it's fairly basic and self-explanatory, I guess. But I'm going to show you. All right, you have a couple different ways you can go about this. If you want to do the whole Dr. Disrespect thing, going out, build a separate green screen set and run out there, then you can set a time delay to then reveal your camera that's pointed over there and chroma key it out and whatever. For sake of easiness, I have my webcam virtual camered out. I have it set up right here. Hello. I have a filter on that scene with the virtual camera source filter, which I covered in a previous plugin video. You can check that linked below if you need to set that up. So I have that virtual cameraing out to NVIDIA Broadcast here, which then removes my background for me. And then I have the NVIDIA Broadcast camera added as a camera over top. And so then to toggle the effect, you use the same keyboard shortcut or whatever, but you can add in revealing this or adding it in with a weight. You can add a weight to the Stream Deck or to AutoHotKey so that you have it just pause first and then come up. And I think it's really cool to not only pause your stream, but then have yourself be over top of the pause stream in a completely different way. I don't know. For me, I think it's pretty cool. I just wanted to throw this idea in here. If you're a Stream Deck user, you're done. Thank you for watching. If you don't have a Stream Deck or you want to learn AutoHotKey or whatever, that's the next part of this video. All right, if you're unhappy with the speed of the Stream Deck option or you don't have one and you want to set up your own macro keypad, I have built an AutoHotKey script I will have linked in the description below. It contains a lot of the usual hacky workarounds I found to make sure your hotkeys go to OBS that I used in my tutorial on how to hide your in-game map automatically using AutoHotKey. But basically, I have it set up so that obviously you can set up your own hotkeys for this. But Control, I think it's Alt-Shift-O. Yeah, Alt-Shift-O activates the effect. Alt-Shift-P turns it off. And you can see here automatic, right off the bat, it is a lot faster. So if you set that up to a macro keypad, it will actually, you don't have to worry about it unloading all of the effects one at a time. Like, it is instant. It is very impressive. And so walking you through, again, ignore most of this. This is just what's required to make sure the hotkeys go to OBS. Alt-Shift-O is this hotkey here. Alt-Shift-P is how you pause and unpause it. I will actually go ahead and add a note for this. So you know which is which. And then these are the hotkeys that we're using in OBS for the different functions. So I had to change the freeze and unfreeze filter because we can't use modifier keys with this. So everything is running on extended F keys. But I have hotkeys mapped for showing and hiding the sources, freezing and unfreezing, and then the hotkeys we already used for showing and hiding the shaders. And so that is set up so that all of this happens just when you press those hotkeys. You could probably, I'm pretty sure there's a way to like set up a loop and set up a toggle in AutoHotKey, But I didn't want to mess with that for the time I have for this video, so I just have 2 separate hotkeys mapped. Even in your macro keypad software, if you have a custom macro keypad, you could set up a toggle on your own with this as well. But then you install AutoHotKey from the link in the description, which I showed off before. It's an awesome software for scripting and macroing and things like that. And then you double click this file and it will run it. It shows up as the little AutoHotKey logo here in the bottom left-hand corner. And as long as it's running and you have OBS open, Alt-Shift-O pauses your stream. Alt-Shift-P unpauses it. Really freaking cool. Link will be in the description. I know this effect isn't everyone's, cup of tea, but my goal is to provide more real-world, tangible use cases for filters and plugins and things like that in a way that I would use them to help get the ideas going in your head of how you might be able to use them to improve your stream. And I hope this video did that. If you're looking for more helpful videos, go check out this video on a capture card that supports variable refresh rate so you don't get screen tearing, or my guide on how to perfect your stream audio so there's no excuse for you having crappy stream audio. Remember, be kind, rewind.